All right, welcome back to the Content Marketing Playbook. It's your host, Josh Culler with Culler Media. And in this episode today, we're talking about structuring content marketing that is going to convert. This is part two of the this two-part little segment. I actually was going to try to put this all into one episode on last week's episode, where I was talking about generating leads and converting those leads with content marketing. But that got to be a lengthy show for that first one. So we split that into two parts because I really wanted to give this specific topic, which is structuring your content to actually convert your leads. I wanted to give this its own episode because I wanted to dive deep into this, even if it does turn into only a 10 or 15 minute episode as opposed to last week's 24 minute episode. That's fine. I want to go deeper into this side of it because last week's episode was more for the generating of the leads. And now we're going to talk about actually getting them to convert. So again, if you're doing content marketing, you're probably a business, right? And what's the goal of a business? Is to bring in revenue through your products or services. And if you're not building the marketing that you have going out, whether that is content marketing or actual paid advertising or whatever it is, if you're not building your marketing out to actually generate and then convert leads, then you're not doing marketing, period. So a lot of people, I know a lot of businesses, they try to build this, Instagram following and YouTube following and podcast following and stuff like that with no plans on actually converting them. And I think that's the wrong way to approach it. And just from a business aspect, that's a terrible decision. Now, if you're talking about actually doing, becoming an influencer for influencer's sake and like you have a purpose behind that, cool, I get that. And if your actual conversion does mean a YouTube subscriber, then hey, so be it. But at the end of the day, if you are running an actual business, the content marketing that you put out needs to be built to actually convert a lead, to generate a lead and then convert that lead, right? So you have, last week, like I said, we talked about that entire process, the journey that a customer would take through your content marketing. You can guide them through that funnel with your content marketing. Now let's talk about the actual conversion process through building your content marketing and structuring it properly. But before we jump into it, if you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Content Marketing Playbook. Again, on all the podcast platforms, so make sure you do subscribe, whatever you're listening to right now. If you are on Apple Podcasts, I would very much appreciate a review. After this episode, head back to the review page, leave a 5-star review with some of your feedback. I'd much appreciate that. That does certainly help. And then also, if you do need some, guidance or assistance with content marketing, whether that's, you got a topic that you want to be talked about on the show, or maybe you have a specific question about this episode, feel free to reach out to me, Josh at Culler Media, Colored spelled Culler, Josh at colormedia.com. Happy to answer any questions. I've gotten a lot of people that's actually sent me emails and asked questions about it. So kudos on you if you've already done that. So I appreciate it. But reach out to me. Don't hesitate to do that. Let's go ahead and jump in the episode today. I've got this broken down into about 7 different key points that you're going to build your content marketing on in order to convert somebody. So if you don't and this isn't like crazy stuff, honestly, this is stuff that most of you already probably know, but don't think about. But every time you build a piece of content out, whether that's a blog, whether that's an ebook, whether that's a video, a podcast, doesn't matter what, an infographic, an email newsletter, whatever that is, you need to have it built on these 7 core pillars in order for it to actually have a chance at converting your lead. Bringing that prospect to a lead and then that lead to actual conversion, which is that last step of the funnel that we're talking about specifically for this episode. And then again, go back to last week's episode if you skip that out so you don't get lost in the mix here. So I'm going to go through each one of those 7 points, those 7 pillars, and go through and really talk about that and break it down for you in the way that is going to be smart for you to convert somebody, because that's what you want to do. So let's talk about the first one, an enticing headline. Earth-shattering, right? Like this is like marketing 101. Anytime you have any kind of a piece of content, a post, again, titles go with like almost everything that you put out on the web. So whether that is a blog post or a YouTube video, a podcast, a title, the subject line for your email newsletter, whatever it is that's going out, social media posting, whatever it is that's going out, you need to make sure you have an enticing and an engaging headline, or also substitute that word headline for title. And now that means that like if somebody is really interested in the headline more, they're like so much more likely to actually click through onto that piece of content and actually watch it. And in some platforms, we're talking like YouTube, if you don't build out your title correctly, then if somebody searches for the piece of the topic that you shot that content on, they search that and you didn't build your title correctly, they're never going to find your video. So you have to make sure you're creating this title. And there's, you can go to Google and search like perfect formula for, good YouTube video titles and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, think about it from your perspective, put yourself in your audience's shoes. And honestly, again, I always take this back to what question is your target audience asking? And again, like content marketing, all it is answering the questions that your target demographic have, right? You guys hear me say that all the time. So maybe what you do is you're taking that question and creating, wordsmithing that a little bit. So if, you're a real estate investor and you're marketing acquisitions and your seller asks you a specific question about the process of working with you, you take that specific question, shoot a video on it, post that video, and then title that video whatever the question was. It's very simple. Like honestly, that's the direction I would take it, because that's the actual question they're asking. Now, obviously you want to simplify it. If they're going to take, 10 years to ask the question and they beat around the bush, that kind of thing, wordsmith it a little bit. But that's essentially the idea of what you want to go with in order to create the title. Like, what's the actual question that you're answering here in this content, right? So whether that is a email newsletter or a blog, a video, podcast, social media posting, whatever it is. So headline, title, extremely important. It's number one for a reason, because that is normally how somebody actually finds your content when they're in discovery mode. So they are on Google or they're on YouTube searching for the answer to the question that they're having. They're searching that. And if your title is relevant and accurate to their question, then it's probably going to pull up, right? So headline. Number two, long form content. Now this is kind of broken down into two barriers here. So number two is going to be long form content. Number three here is going to be useful or educational content. So we're going to break this down in a couple pieces. So when it comes down to actual converting content, a lot of times the long form content has the best chance of converting somebody. The reason being is because, in these days, the longer and more in depth that you go into a topic or answering somebody's question, the more authority, the more rapport, the more credibility that you're going to have with the person that's asking the question. And essentially, Google really likes to rank that type of content, longer form content, higher in the algorithms. So not going super deep into search engine optimization and all that and the science behind that, because I could bring somebody else on the show to talk about that, because I'll just be honest with you, I'm not an expert on it. I do know that it does actually help in your search rankings though. So typically I think the ideal blog post, people tell you 4,000 words. And again, there's probably somebody out there that's bashing me right now, but I think that's what it is. 4,000 words is the shortest you want to make it, because you got to keep people on the page. And that's essentially what you want to do, is keep them on that page, keep them engaging. You got to make sure the content's engaging, of course, but you want to keep them on that page in order for them to, get enough information out of your content that's going to actually answer their question and answer it thoroughly. Now, that being said, there is a useful time for shorter form content, which kind of leads me to number three. So that's number two. So one is an enticing headline or title. Number two is a long form content. And then number three is useful or educational content, but also short form content thrown into that. So you always want to strive to be useful or educational, also relevant. Remember that people are on the internet to find the answers to the problems that they have. And this is your opportunity to provide that solution for them. And if you are able to provide that solution for them, whether that's just pointing them in the right direction, even if they don't convert with you, at some point they'll probably circle back around or tell other people about you and how you answered their question, right? So this is where, we have several other podcast episodes on this channel that talk about creating educational and informational content and how to create short form videos, stuff like that. So if you want to go more in depth with that, then you can go back and listen to those episodes. But this is pretty simple, pretty basic. If you provide simple, easy to learn, easy to understand, useful and educational and informational content that makes sense and is relevant with your target demographic, the higher likelihood you have of converting them. It's very simple. That's the thought process you need to be going into. And again, useful and understanding content, that's something that's hard for people to understand. again, for instance, I use real estate investors. Let's not use real estate investors. Let's use a trainer, a physical fitness trainer, right? There's a lot of technical terms when it comes to physical fitness. What is a lat pull down? What's a seated row? What is interval mile? Like stuff like that kind of terminology. If somebody's never done that kind of stuff before and they're wanting to get into it, they have no idea what you're talking about. And so it creates confusion in their brain. And as we all know, one of the biggest basis of fear is lack of knowledge. So if they're fearful of the terminology you're using because they don't know what it means, the less likely they are to actually convert and pull the trigger with you. So bringing that information down on a fourth grade level for them to be able to understand it is so key and pivotal for you to actually create content that is going to convert somebody. So I know I went in a couple of different directions in that segment, so hopefully that made sense, but that is all stuff that you need to take into consideration when it comes to useful and educational content, right? And also apply that to your long form content as well. Number 4, I don't know why I did this. If you're listening on the podcast, I actually did like number 2. So this is number 4. Relevant visuals. Now, this can be relatable to many different forms of content. So let's talk about, say, YouTube, right? YouTube videos. What is something that you can think about that is a relevant visual? Thumbnail. Thumbnails are normally, if somebody is searching for a specific topic, thumbnails are normally, like the title is what they're searching, but the thumbnail is the first thing that they're going to see. Visuals that are relevant to the target demographic, the person that's searching for the answer to their question, the person that actually finds that visual that's relevant to what they're looking for, that is more than likely what they're going to click on, right? So this is why thumbnails, people talk about YouTube thumbnails all the time. This is why thumbnails are so important. Same thing for blog postings. Same thing for, videos that maybe you have graphics inside of them and that kind of thing. Like whenever you have a website that you're building out, the content on there, if the visuals are not relevant to your target demographic, they're more than likely not going to stay on your platform, right? So if you are a fitness trainer, make sure you have visuals on your website that are relevant to the person that's actually searching for your services or your offerings, right? So that's a pretty simple one, but something that a lot of people don't think about. A lot of people like to use irrelevant thumbnails on their YouTube videos, and they wonder why it doesn't get any engagement. This is literally like thumbnails are literally one of the biggest ways that you can drive results onto your YouTube videos. Same thing for Facebook videos, and same thing for even like Instagram videos. When we're talking about Instagram, if you go to somebody's profile and you see that first 9, they call it the grid, the first 9 pieces of content, whether that's an image or a video. If you have a video and it doesn't have a relevant thumbnail on that video, because when you upload a video to Instagram, you're able to select a thumbnail. If it's not relevant, somebody that may have actually received value from that, they're not going to click on it because it's not relevant to them. So you got to keep that in mind. Relevant visuals are key when it comes to actually getting people to convert through your content. Number 5 is keywords and metadata. Now, I combine these two things because keywords are important, right? I mean, we're talking about like when you, again, like go back to YouTube, or let's talk about like podcast show notes. So let's say you have a podcast. I actually just built a podcast website for the REI Marketing Weekly, and you go to reimarketingweekly.com, and all the show notes for the episodes are currently being uploaded. And I think about half of them are already done there. The other half are being produced. But the reason why I do show notes is because it's going to be very keyword rich, which means that if somebody searches for a specific topic, it's gonna pull up in the search rankings, right? And so that's why keywords are so important, is because somebody searches them and it may not be the title that they're specifically looking for, but if the keyword is relevant to their search, then your content may pull up with it, right? So and it, especially if it answers their question, then you've got it in with them. So keywords are basically one of the biggest ways, and if not the biggest way, that somebody will actually find your content, whether that is on Facebook, Instagram. If you want to relate it to Instagram, hashtags are basically keywords. So how do people find other accounts and profiles that are relevant to them on Instagram? Is they click on hashtags. So hashtags are those keywords That's what's relevant to keywords on Instagram. Same thing for Twitter. Same thing for LinkedIn too. Facebook is a little bit different in the way that people search because they do use the search bar when they're searching for something. So, and a lot of people don't know that. So that's relevant. And then of course, on your blogs, on YouTube videos, you have an option to put keywords into the actual content on the back end side. So make sure you're filling that out. And then in addition to that, what's called metadata. These are just additional things that you can do. So for instance, a neat little trick that I always like to tell people is if you're going to upload videos to YouTube, on the thumbnails, when you create those good visuals, on the thumbnails, title the actual, like when you're on your computer before you upload the thumbnail, title the thumbnail a bunch of keywords, because that will actually help when somebody goes and searches for your keyword or key phrase or the title of the actual thumbnail. Neat little trick. So that's a free one right there. But that's all like metadata that is included in with that keyword research, because that all plays into the search functions when somebody is searching for a specific topic. So make sure you're filling all that out. I can't stress that enough. Like if you're going on YouTube, if you're going on bloggings, if you're putting an article out on your website, there are places to actually fill metadata in, and make sure that you are doing that. So that's number 5. Number 6, got 2 more to go. Number 6, links to high quality resources. This is a really big one too, that a lot of people miss out on. So if you do put content out, make sure you have a place or a direction that people are going to go in. So even if it is one simple Instagram post that you put out there, say, want more information about blank, click on the link in our bio, right? Because you can only use one link in Instagram, which really sucks, but it is what it is. So the only link that you get is in your bio. So direct people to your bio and they'll go click on it. If you have a Facebook, if you're posting on Facebook a piece of content, make sure you're sending them to a specific direction that you want them to go. A resource. So again, like when I put my show notes out for my podcast, whatever topics I'm talking about, whatever resources I mention, if I mention a book, if I mention a website, a tool, something like that, I'm linking those resources because that helps in the search engine to actually rank my piece of content higher because it has relevant resources in there. So link as many resources that are relevant to your actual piece of content as you can. That goes for YouTube, that goes for your podcast and show notes, and then your Facebook posting, stuff like that. So make sure you're doing that. Number 7, last but not least, links to related posts on your own content. So this is something that I don't do a whole lot of, but I am definitely going to be pushing more to do that. But I've heard this works very, very well. So this also means to actually direct people to other people's websites that are relevant to the content you're posting. So for instance, let's say you put a blog out on your website. Again, a physical fitness trainer, you create a blog that talks about how to do seated rows correctly. In the entire blog, you got visuals in there showing the right positions. You got, good text in there. You got a good title and everything. You got the resources. So here's the bench that you need to get on Amazon in order to get some good formed, seated rows with your pulley or whatever. And then underneath that, you have also linked, hey, also check out this person's website. Could be a friend of yours or an associate. Check out this website for more information about how to improve your form on seated rows. That's just an example, but that's like pretty much in a nutshell what it is. You're just linking relevant content inside of your content because that backlinking certainly helps with the searches. So when you're posting content, and don't do this too much on social media. And when I say social media, I do mean Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and all these other places that you can link out. YouTube, like do it as much as you can. Facebook, they don't want you leaving the platform, so don't do it too much. The reason why the last one I said Facebook, just use one link, don't use multiple links. You want to send them in one direction. But YouTube, you can place as many links as you want. And then also on your website, make sure you're linking out as well. So those are the 7 pillars of creating content that is going to help convert your target demographic when they get to your content, right? So this obviously, a lot of this is actually searches as well. So helps in the searches, people find your content. And then that if you are building all 7 of these things out, you are 10 times more likely to convert somebody onto your product or service or whatever you have than if you don't use these. So make sure you take these into consideration. And again, like once they go into the conversion stage, it's up to you to close them, right? So now you need to make sure that you have your good sales processes in place, which this isn't a sales podcast. This is content marketing, but all that plays into it. So make sure you're building that out correctly so that you don't just get leads and get them into conversion stage and then they don't close and they don't actually convert. You got to take that further step in that process. So make sure you do all that. But that's it. So summing it up, number 1, really enticing headline or title. Number 2, long form content. Number 3, useful or educational content. Number 4, relevant visuals. Number 5, keywords and metadata. Number 6, links to high quality resources and relevant resources. And then number 7, links to related posts or relevant posts on your content out to other places. So that's what I got for you guys today. Again, hopefully that all made sense and was biteable for you to actually implement into your content marketing strategies. Because again, like I always tell you, don't try to do everything at once, but these are the core foundations that need to be built upon when it comes to your content marketing in order for leads to turn into conversions and customers. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening in and joining me today. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, go back to the reviews page, leave me a 5-star review. Much appreciate that. Reach out to me if you have any questions, josh@colormedia.com. Color spelled C-U-L-L-E-R. Seriously, ask any questions that you have, whether it's about this podcast topic specifically or another topic about content marketing, or if it's something you want me to cover on the show. Would much appreciate that. Thank you guys for listening in, and I'll catch you on the next one. See you later.